Let's talk about George Carlin, but not the comedian, not the satirist, not the cranky prophet most people remember. Instead, let's talk about Carlin as one of America's great philosophers of systemic clarity, and why his cynicism, though sharp and compelling, ultimately became his intellectual Achilles heel. Carlin was a master of what we now call the POSIWID principle. The purpose of a system is what it does. I gave this universal critical thinking tool a name, but Carlin lived it. His comedy routines weren't just social critiques. They were living dissections of American society's actual operating logic. He cut right through the mythology, the polite pretensions, the carefully managed narratives, and laid bare the underlying structure. He never asked us to believe what the system claimed about itself. He simply held up a mirror and said, look at what's happening. Look at who benefits and who suffers. That's the truth of it. Take Carlin's legendary riff on the American dream, where he said bluntly that you have to be asleep to believe it. This wasn't just punchy cynicism. It was POSIWID distilled into a single searing sentence. He saw clearly that the purpose of the so-called American dream wasn't to create widespread prosperity, dignity, or liberty, but to manufacture compliance. It was a carrot, dangled just out of reach, always promising upward mobility, but consistently delivering precarity, fear, and endless hustle. And he saw that clearly decades before most people were willing to admit it. In fact, Carlin's brilliance lay precisely in his ruthless clarity. He never mistook rhetoric for reality. Where politicians and pundits spun lofty ideals, Carlin saw policies. Where the powerful offered platitudes about freedom, Carlin traced their actual outcomes. When he described the American system as rigged, bought, and paid for, he wasn't being provocative. He was reading reality plainly. To Carlin, there were no hidden motives, no secret conspiracies, no mysterious cabals pulling the strings behind the scenes. There was just power, purpose, and observable outcomes. The system did exactly what it was structured to do. But Carlin's legacy isn't spotless. His greatest strength, the radical clarity of his vision, also gave rise to his most significant blind spot, his cynicism. To Carlin, the system was irredeemable, fixed permanently in its corruption. He diagnosed it perfectly, but never prescribed anything beyond the caustic joy of pointing out the absurdity of our plight. And this, as satisfying as it might feel in the moment, is precisely where Carlin's logic stalls. Cynicism is seductive because it feels like clarity, but in truth, its clarity stopped halfway. Cynicism correctly sees the rot, but never imagines reconstruction. That's the cynic's blind spot. They mistake the first step of enlightenment, recognizing the world's brokenness, for the whole journey. But clarity isn't enough. If we only name the dysfunction, if we only see clearly without acting, we become complicit. Knowing exactly how the machine harms us isn't liberating if we never consider how to rebuild it, or better yet, build something else entirely. Enlightenment isn't complete until it compels you toward constructive action. This is why Carlin, despite his extraordinary insight, never moved beyond outrage. He believed too completely in the permanence of corruption. He saw clearly that the powerful had built a machine designed to concentrate wealth, exploit labor, and commodify life itself. But he never trusted us enough, never trusted humanity enough to conceive that we might dismantle that machine and build something better. Carlin believed the game was fixed forever, and thus concluded our best move was simply to refuse to play seriously. But the lesson here, if we're brave enough to see it, is precisely that we must do more than name the dysfunction. We have to embrace the second half of the Enlightenment project, the half Carlin abandoned: radical, honest construction. We have to take the systemic clarity Carlin mastered and turn it toward engineering something better. Enlightenment socialism does exactly that. It takes the POSIWID principle, which Carlin embodied intuitively, and completes it by using it not just to diagnose, but to consciously design new systems. We start not from what the powerful promise, but from what we actually want our systems to produce: housing, dignity, time, abundance. And then we build our structures intentionally to deliver those outcomes. Think about housing. Today, shelter isn't infrastructure. It's leverage wielded against the working class. The purpose of our current housing system, revealed by its outcomes, isn't to provide homes, but to concentrate property in fewer hands while leaving millions precarious and vulnerable. So, if we truly want a society of housed and sovereign citizens, our job isn't to tweak the system at the edges. Our job is to consciously engineer housing as a universal, irrevocable right. We don't get there by cynically observing injustice. We get there by building intentional structures, publicly funded, publicly owned, and permanently affordable, that make eviction obsolete. Likewise, consider time. Right now, the purpose of the American economy by outcome is not widespread abundance or freedom. It's extracting maximal labor while returning minimal security. 40 hours a week isn't sacred. It's structural theft. Again, POSIWID demands clarity. If the economy leaves most workers exhausted, anxious, and time poor, that's because it was built to produce exactly that result. To move beyond cynicism, we take that clarity and use it to redesign our working lives around the liberation of time itself. 4-hour days, 4-day weeks, automation serving humanity instead of profit margins. That's Enlightenment socialism, turning Carlin's systemic clarity into constructive policy. This is not wishful thinking. It's realism informed by radical clarity. If the purpose of the system is what it does, we have the power, indeed, the responsibility to intentionally construct new systems whose explicit purpose is abundance, sovereignty, and dignity. We can't be satisfied simply to laugh bitterly at how broken everything is. George Carlin's cynicism showed us exactly how the old game was rigged, but we need to move past the limitations of his vision. We have to trust ourselves to play a different game on different terms. And that's why this isn't just about Carlin, comedy, or philosophy. It's about how we move forward, practically and politically. Carlin named the rot, but we have to build. We take POSIWID, Carlin's great philosophical gift, and instead of ending at outrage, we extend it into responsibility. The world is not fixed forever. It's ours to rebuild. Cynicism is a tempting comfort, but ultimately a sterile one. Our calling, our real enlightenment project, is to combine Carlin's ruthless clarity with something he never fully embraced: hope grounded in honest construction. The greatest tribute to Carlin isn't to mimic his cynicism. It's to finish his thought. It's to use his method, that radical clarity, as the tool it was always meant to be. The world isn't inevitably rigged. It's simply rigged now. But what is built can always be dismantled and rebuilt again. We can and must turn Carlin's cynicism into constructive courage.